Hey Geeks, Mod Tim here, coming at you live yet again. I got a new phone, so hopefully, I don't know if this is going to be better quality or better reception, hopefully, because clearly the last time I tried this, it was kind of a fail. So this time we are doing Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. So it came out in 1984, so it's been 2 years since The Wrath of Khan came out. It's kind of interesting because, so the motion picture is usually kind of considered not so great, but I had so much to talk about since it's the first movie. And then I did The Wrath of Khan, which is typically considered like the best movie. But yet, I had some stuff to say, but not a whole lot. And then now we have The Search for Spock, which if we go by the even and odds, it's also kind of considered one of the not so great movies. But once again, I have a ton to say, so that's why I'm doing it live. And Tanner's watching. What's up, Tanner? So first off, I think the most noteworthy thing for this movie is that it was directed by Leonard Nimoy. And at this point in the franchise, none of the cast had ever directed the series or a movie before. So it's kind of interesting that he was the first one to kind of step up in that role, which kind of becomes a staple later on. Like especially for the guys like Riker and Geordi, and like just so many actors come through and start directing. Even into Discovery, we see a lot of past actors directing the episodes. The only thing that comes close to that is for the animated series, Walter Koenig, the actor that plays Chekhov, wrote one of the episodes because he wasn't allowed to act in it. So he kind of, and even then, he said that he wrote it, and then Gene Roddenberry's like, no, that's not right, do it again. And so I think he wrote like 12 drafts or something before they finally were able to go through with it, and that's not even that great of an episode. But so it's kind of interesting. And I actually have a lot of stuff about the cast for this movie, because the cast is so great. The movie aside is kind of okay, but the cast is great. And hi, Ivan. So I'm really disappointed that Kirstie Alley did not return as Lieutenant Saavik, because I felt like she really like brought the character alive. Robin Curtis plays her in this and the next movie. But Kirstie Alley, I mean, I just love her. Even now, she just has that charisma about her. And there's always rumors of why she didn't. Some people say that she knew that it was going to be good, and so she wanted a pay raise. And then some people say that she didn't want to be typecast and just didn't want to do it. Whatever the reason, I personally, I thought Robin Curtis did okay, but I can always see Kirstie Alley in the back of my mind, and so it's always distracting, because it's distracting whenever they change actors anyway. But so we see Robin Curtis here, and we'll see Robin Curtis as Saavik again in the fourth movie, but then the actor herself comes back as a completely different character in The Next Generation in the 2-part episode Gambit. So that's kind of interesting to see her coming back. And the kid, I didn't write down his name, sorry. The kid that plays William Shatner's son, David, also comes back in The Next Generation. So it's nice to see those actors staying with the universe, because it's clear that they like the franchise. And once again, they didn't really talk about Saavik being like half Romulan and half Vulcan. So once again, but this time, we don't really see, she's less emotional in this movie than she was in The Wrath of Khan. Especially when David dies, she's just flat. And that, I kind of wish they would have explored that part of her character a lot more. And Josh is here. What's up, Josh? Mod Bros. We also see Mark Leonard as Sarek comes back, and this marks the 3rd time he's played the character. So now he was the first Romulan we ever saw, and then we saw him as Sarek, which is his most well-known character. And then he had a short little cameo that I watched the movie, I paused it, and I still can't see him as the Klingon captain, which is either really good or really bad. I don't know. But then in this movie, he comes back as Sarek. And then he'll come back in a couple of the other movies, and he'll even reprise Sarek in The Next Generation. So it's really cool that he liked that role. So, and he did it in the animated series. I forgot about that. So we see Mark Leonard as Sarek come back, and then Yeoman Rand. So in the first movie, she was Transporter Chief Rand, and then she wasn't in Wrath of Khan. And in this, she has a really short little cameo where the Enterprise is coming in, and now she has red hair, and she just kind of shakes her head in like sadness or disappointment, seeing the Enterprise just messed up. But it was kind of interesting still that because when she left at the end of season 1, it was under such bad circumstances because she kind of felt attacked a lot. And so she left the series altogether. And then it's good to see that she's coming back and kind of making peace with it. And she comes back over and over again. And she's even in Voyager and some of the fan fiction movies, like the Of Gods and Men movie. But it's good to see her. That made me happy. I'm sorry. So those are like most of the returning characters that I thought were pretty awesome. And then as far as the new characters, like I said, this cast for this movie is like out of this world. Get it? Out of this world. That's pretty good. So Christopher Lloyd is probably the most noteworthy main character because at 1984, I think at this point, like Back to the Future and Clue had come out, so he's a well-known actor at this point. So and it was great because I was watching it with my husband, and I was like, "Do you know who this guy is? Like, do you recognize his voice?" And it was like, "Oh shit, that's fucking Christopher Lloyd." So it's kind of cool. I love seeing him in this role, and I felt like he just ate it up. He was doing really, really good. Josh, what are you groaning about? And then John LaRoquette, which again, like I had to pause it. Like I knew which character he was, and I paused it, and I still could not see John LaRoquette as one of the Klingons. John LaRoquette's probably most famous for Night Court. One of my top 10 favorite movies is The 10th Kingdom, and he plays the dad. Yeah, couldn't see him, which I guess the makeup it's just really, really well done. And then some of the lesser roles, Miguel Ferrer. God, I suck at names. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm just bad with names. Miguel Ferrer is on the Excelsior. I thought he was the helmsman. I had to look it up, and I guess he plays the number 1 or the commander. He's George Clooney's cousin. He's usually a villain. He was in like Twin Peaks. He plays the FBI agent. Total Recall, RoboCop, Blank Check, if you guys know who that is. But he's like, it's a blink and you miss it. And I was like, oh, and then it made me sad because I forgot that he had died. Yes, Robert, thank you, Taxi. I forgot about that one. You're right. So Miguel Ferrer, it made me sad because when he died, it was really sad. But it was awesome to see him because I never knew he was in it before, or I kind of forgot he was in it. And then Phil Morris, who I feel like is kind of a character actor. He's kind of, it's hard to pinpoint what he's known for. He was in the animated Disney movie Atlantis. He was in Smallville as Martian Manhunter. I probably should have written down his filmography. I just saw him in the newest episode of Doom Patrol. He plays Cyborg's dad. But it's kind of interesting that he's in this because in the original series episode Miri, where it's about like the little kids that are alive while all the adults are dead, he plays one of the little kids because he was a little kid. Yeah, weird. So it's kind of interesting in that because I first recognized him from the Voyager episode where I forgot exactly, but he plays like one of the first men who went to Mars or something. So he was in the original series. He's in this movie, The Search for Spock. He plays one of the Jem'Hadar in Deep Space Nine. He plays a human in Voyager. Like he's definitely a Star Trek actor, and he's a good actor in general. I really like Phil Morris. Sorry, I'm like really going because I'm trying to keep this short. I think for all the actors though, I think that's about it. But there's a lot going on in this movie. So like I said, this movie came out in 1984. When T.J. Hooker actually started in 1982, which is what the show William Shatner's like second most famous role is. Sorry, I just lost my whole train of thought because I see Jordan's watching me now. What's up? So in 1982, William Shatner started his cop role, T.J. Hooker. And so this had been going on for a couple years now. So it's now as an audience member, because I always try to put myself in that position where how did the audience view this movie? So now they're seeing Kirk, T.J. Hooker, and the big screen William Shatner. So there's that. Let's see. They mentioned Transwarp Drive, which I mentioned sometime earlier. I don't remember. See, this is why I normally record the videos and not do them live, just because I can kind of practice and do this, whereas now I'm just like, I don't fucking know. Because in the original series and the animated series, at one point they hit like warp 36, and it's crazy. Whereas once we get to the next generation, and warp is finite at 9.9 is the fastest we can go. Whereas in the animated series, they're hitting warp 36. Well, in this one, they're looking at the Excelsior, and they're like, oh, supposedly it has trans-warp drive. And you as an audience member are like, what the fuck is that? So my guess is they kind of redid how we measure warp drive. So like now warp 10 for the original series is what we look at and the next generation is warp 1. I'm going to lie to myself personally and say that's what they mean by trans warp drive. I don't know what that means, Rob. I'm sorry. Warp 10 is slug babies. I don't know. Sorry. You're going to have to expand a little bit more. Your knowledge has me in awe. I think you're my hero. Thank you, Brandon. I try. I'm prepared. I have a whole list of notes right here. I'm cheating hardcore. Infinite Warp 10 has disastrous effects. Yes, and that's one of my... It's the worst episode of Voyager, but it's one of my favorites, where Paris manages to get the Delta Flyer to warp 10, and it makes them as humans start evolving faster, which is where, like, because you see Paris do that in Voyager. At warp 10, it just throws off the human DNA, but in the original series, they're hitting fucking, like, warp 36, so warp's always just kind of weird in Star Trek. It is what it is, to be honest with you. So to go past that, I think it's interesting because they talk about how they're going to decommission the Enterprise. And Kirk's like, what are you talking about? Like, it's still good. And the admiral he's talking to is like, Kirk, the Enterprise is 20 years old. Which, if you start doing the math, this movie came out in 1984, and if you measure it in actual time, 20 years would be 1964, which I think is when the original Cage pilot was filmed. So, I mean, he could have just been, like, talking, like, rounding, like, it could have actually been, like, 24 years or 25 years, because we know there was Kirk, and then there was Pike, and if you go by the Admiral series, there was Robert April. So we don't know exactly how long the Enterprise has been going, or has been in commission. So, I mean, because at this point, they really hadn't hammered down those details. There are some fans out there who probably know the exact minute it was created. I'm not that guy. I'm just kind of watching it for fun. Justin Norris, thank you, actually. Side project, this is a pop figure of the animated series. I love this shirt. It's great. So, I thought it was interesting that they did mention that the Enterprise age was about 20 years. So that was kind of cool. And also, at the end... Yes, sorry, I'm getting distracted. I love how I can see what you guys are saying. That's the greatest thing ever. So in this episode, they bring up the destruct sequence, which in one of the episodes of the original series, I had mentioned how they had the destruct sequence, and it took 3 people. It took Kirk, it took Spock, and it took Scotty was the third one, and they each had to put in their password. And I was like, that's awesome, because I know in the next generation they do that as well, but I couldn't remember if it's 2 or 3 people. In this one, they actually bring up the destruct sequence again, and it actually succeeds. But this time it's Kirk, Scotty, and Chekhov. So I just thought it was kind of interesting that they kept that going from the original series. Okay. So that's kind of an interesting fact. I like how they keep that going, because once they establish something, I'm not like a hardcore fan. Like, if you change it, okay, I'll kind of buy into it. But if you can keep it going, or at least explain why, I'm sold. Like, I'm totally okay with it. Like, I said in the first movie review, I did not need an explanation on why the Klingons change to in the next generation. I'm not sure what that means. Like, I did not need an explanation on why the Klingons changed their design. You had a bigger budget. I'm good. But they felt the need to explain it. So stuff like that, if you explain it, that's great. If not, okay, I don't need it. I thought it was interesting that Leonard Nimoy directed this movie, as he will also direct the next movie, where, in spoilers for the 4th movie, they establish that there is no money in Star Trek, which I always felt like was a mistake. Like, I'm pretty sure they knew it was a mistake as soon as they did it. Like, somebody in the back room was like, fuck, that was a bad idea. Because they've been trying to erase that ever since. In this movie, for example, when Bones is trying to get a charter to Vulcan, he's talking about money, and he's like, how much will it cost? By the way, last time I did a movie, Josh, you asked about Low Belly. Here's my puppy, Low Belly. He's a good boy. He likes Star Trek too. Whereas especially once we get to Deep Space Nine, and you got like the gold press latinum, which they talk about in every single episode. Clearly, in the Star Trek universe, there is money. So this, and then they mention it in First Contact as well, where there's not really money. Yeah, there's money. I know there's money. So it's, I don't know. I always felt that like that was kind of a mistake for them to mention. I think my favorite piece of random stuff for this whole movie, though, was at one point, so the Enterprise is like pretty destroyed. It's pretty messed up. It's in bad shape. And Kirk is talking to Scotty, and he's like, so how long is this going to take? And he's like, well, it's going to take 8 weeks to get it back up and running. But I could do it for you in 2. And Kirk, like, flat out calls him on his bullshit. And I wrote down his exact words. He's like, have you always multiplied your repair estimates by a factor of 4? And Scotty goes, well, yeah, that's why do you think I'm such a miracle worker? So that in itself, it's pretty funny. Like, it's great. But what I love about that is in The Next Generation, Scotty comes back in one of my favorite episodes. It's called Relics. And there's a great line where Geordi's talking to Picard, and Picard's like, how long is it going to take? And Geordi's like, it's going to take 3 hours. And Scotty's like, so how long is it really going to take? And Geordi goes, it's going to take 3 hours. And Scotty's like, you told him the truth? Like, you're not supposed to do that. So once again, they established something in one part, and then they kept it going for the series. And it's stupid, I know, but it's great. I really, really liked how they included that in the series. Okay, so I think that's all of my random trivia. So for the movie itself, this movie gets a lot of hate. A lot of hate. But, you know, to be honest with you, I kind of enjoy it. They don't have a lot to go with. And Leonard Nimoy, okay, so according to Brandon, Picard and Riker activate the self-destruct in Star Trek The Next Generation. So it's just 2 people. So in the original, it's 3, but in The Next Generation, it's 2. Okay, thank you. I couldn't remember if it was Picard, Riker, and Data. Whatever. So, thank you. Brandon, thank you very much. So this, like I said, this movie gets a lot of hate. But I kind of like it, other than Robin Curtis, because my own personal, like, I miss Kirstie Alley. I kind of like it. They don't have a lot to work with, but like at no point in this movie, and I'm like, God, it's just dragging. Like, they're always kind of going, and like the plot's not super thick. Like, it's really thin, and you can guess the end of the movie by the beginning of the movie. You could watch the end of The Wrath of Khan and be like, they're gonna fucking find Spock's body, and they're gonna do a mind transplant, and he's gonna come back. Like, you know this movie just by the end of The Wrath of Khan. They could have skipped this whole thing. But I like it. It's, you have to frame this movie as the second part of it. I completely agree. And thank you, Rob, you kind of ruined my whole, like, little thing. Because if you look at The Wrath of Khan, The Search for Spock, The Voyage Home, like, they take place, like, all of this takes place in, like, a week? I'll expand. I'll say a month tops, even though it goes over years, like between each movie. Like, this whole thing takes place over a month tops. Like, it's one whole little segment, which is something pretty unheard of. Even the Next Generation movies don't do that. They do it in multiple ways. I believe you're right on those 3. Thank you. But I really do. I kind of like this movie. It has like a kind of special place. It's also really heartbreaking in a lot of ways. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, when David dies and Kirk like falls in the chair, Like, after that, when he's like, you Klingon bastards, like, that oversold it, but when he misses the chair and hits the floor, which supposedly was unscripted, and that was just William Shatner, dude, the first time I saw this, I fucking lost it. Because it's his son, that he just found out about, like, died, and he misses the chair. Like, he just falls. And, like, this whole movie, it's really, really emotional. But I like it. I think it's a good movie. I especially, like, you can watch some movies and be like, oh, this movie right here, this is a first time director. It doesn't matter how good of a movie it is. Like you can take The Sixth Sense. It's a great movie, but you can tell that is M. Night's first movie. Like, Leonard Nimoy, for a first time director, like, this is a really well done movie. And to go from, like, this to The Voyage Home, like, I feel like Leonard Nimoy, he did the best he could, and I really do think he did a good job. Like, I like this movie. I think this is a better movie than what it deserves, if that makes sense. And really, I think that's about it. Like, sorry, you're gonna have to bear with me. Like I said, this is why I normally record, but there's so many notes for this movie. Yeah. So if you guys have seen it, which I love seeing you guys comment, this is perfect. What do you guys think about this movie? Like I said, this movie gets a lot of hate, and I feel like I can't be the only one. I mean, there's 6 billion people on the planet. I can't be the only one that actually enjoys this movie. Like, I feel like this movie could be like a 6, whereas if Kirstie Alley had come back, it could have been like an 8. It's unfair to Robin Curtis, to be honest. If Robin Curtis had been in the Wrath of Khan rather than Kirstie Alley, then that would have been different. But Kirstie Alley just fucking set that bar so high that it is what it is. But what do you guys think about this movie? What do you guys like about it? What do you guys dislike about it? What do you guys... It's not 5. It's not too bad. Yeah, agreed. What do you guys think about Leonard Nimoy's directing style? Because after this, I just lost it. I know he did a lot of... Did he do 3 Men and a Baby? I think he did 3 Men and a Baby. Leonard Nimoy did direct other stuff after this. Like, not to be too spoilerish, but he's definitely a better director than William Shatner. That's all we're going to say until we get to that movie. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think about the returning actors, like Mark Leonard and Yeoman Rand. Whitney Courtney, I think is her name. Shit, sorry. Let me know what you guys think about John LaRoquette, because, like I said, I couldn't even see him as a Klingon. Or as an actor, I just saw him as the Klingon. Let me know what you guys think about Christopher Lloyd. And this is not the first time that we start seeing little, like, snippets of well-known actors. Like, eventually we'll get to the point where we see Christian Slater show up. But like I said, this is one of the first movies Miguel Ferreira, God, I suck at names, shows up in. Like, this is one of his first movies. I actually had to look that up. So let me know what you guys think about that. Seeing early appearances of well-known actors. So you guys go ahead and comment. I will start replying to your comments. And thank you guys for participating. Thank you guys for watching. I've lost track. I think we're up to like almost 90 episodes or 90 videos now of you guys watching. It means a lot that you guys enjoy it. Once we get through the movies, I will continue on with the Next Generation. I actually kind of looked it up and did the math. I should be able to actually do every episode of all of Star Trek within 1 year. So that's my New Year's resolution. And at this point, we're at February 27th. This is probably the longest resolution I've ever done. So this is great. So thank you all once again. And I will see you guys tomorrow for one of my personal favorites, probably my favorite movie, Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home.